Hey, my name is Kay, CEO, and one of the co-founders here at Zazu. I'm doing this video. Really, it's an impromptu thing, right? But I'm doing this video because I had a conversation with a professional yesterday who was asking me, "Well, how do you raise money as an African? Uh, how do you raise money for an African startup?" And I thought, okay, well, that's interesting. I guess what he was really asking is, how do you raise money as a black founder? Building a solution, introducing an innovation into the marketplace, right? How do you do that? And well, the reason why I'm qualified to answer that question is because we are still raising, but we're making a huge progress in our 400k pre-seed round. We've got over 200 pounds invested so far, and we're pretty much confident that a lot of the people in the pipeline are going to move very quickly. So I want to share our experience or my experience in terms of how to do that, and so that you can hopefully watch this video and avoid all of the mistakes that we made or I made, and close quickly. So right, so this how to raise money as a black founder. And by the way, I just want to say I'm not an advisor, so definitely, guess whatever I say, take it with a pinch of salt. It's an opinion. It's not advice on how you should do or don't do anything, right? And this presentation is going to be about three things, right? How to prepare for raising money, your fundraising strategy, and how to close investors. So let's go. Why did I even create this, right? Boom, delete. Yeah, we don't need that. Cool. So let's get right into it. Preparation. Well, just to sort of make sure that we're on the same page. So if you're sort of thinking about raising money in the first place, you must have ticked some checkboxes, right? Meaning that you're in a very interesting space. You're creating a solution for a need in the marketplace. And if this is going to be a venture-backed business, it's definitely, the market is definitely worth some sort of billions, right? That's what really get investors excited about, backing a company. And you know how much you want to raise as well, right? Like, well, you're raising 100k, 200k, or 300k, or maybe a million, wherever that is, right? And again, you're a pre-seed stage, meaning this is your first round. You've never raised money ever before. It's your pre-seed round. So this preparation stage, I just have to say that, right? You've got this checklist checked, right? Now there are three things I think you at this stage you need to do in terms of preparing yourself. You're just about to start speaking to investors. You're about to start raising. You need to at this stage understand. Well, I have a professional pitch deck. One of the things I see quite often is our entrepreneurs, like first-time founders, just don't. When you look at their deck, it's just really ugly. And I've been there as well, right? Our deck was like embarrassing, and it's just not a good look. Like when you send those embarrassing, like poorly made pitch deck to people that you want their money, they just like, okay, well, this guy's not serious, right? Maybe you can get away with it if you're like if you're like an experienced founder, you've exited a company before, yeah, cool. But first time founder, you need to have a professionally made pitch deck, right? By professionally made, I mean, the design should be really, really good. There are quite a lot of templates out there that you can use. Quite frankly, I'm not a big fan of templates. And I'm speaking to black founders, right? I'm not talking about other type of founders who have some other privilege that works with them. If you're black, there's a lot of suspicion just because you're black. So you want to look as professional as possible. Your design should be concrete, structured, coherent, beautifully made, beautifully designed. We were lucky to our head of design, did a very good job. But even that being said, we still had to then get, and this is where I'm moving to number two now, we had to get a consultant in to help us to construct an amazing narrative for what we're doing. So it's not just a beautiful looking deck, but actually the narrative is much more important, right? Because when you sort of get people on the call or on the phone and you're doing a presentation, like you're really telling a story, right? And you want to tap into like really big ideas, and there are processes and structures in terms of how to tell that narrative in a way that resonates in the ears and the minds of your investors, right? So part of working with a professional to construct a deck for you is that you also uh, work on your narrative, and with their professional expertise, they can very quickly help you to put together a beautiful narrative that makes sense, right? That definitely helped us at Zazu when we then pre narrative with our initial old deck, which looked alright. It was still kind of, people were like, okay, well, this is interesting. There was a lot of questions being asked because we weren't using the right terms. We weren't positioning ourselves very well. We weren't, coming up with the right sort of narrative. And then after narrative, the conversation was much smoother for me. And investors really get it. They started to get excited. We were getting a lot of nods, like, okay, well, this is good. This sounds interesting. I can see how this is going to be useful, right? And that's what a narrative does, right? And the final thing is you need to practice. Like you got to practice your pitch. And I know this sounds very cliche, but you have to practice. I'm talking practicing with 50 people before you even speak to investors. Like just practice. The more you practice, the more you get better at your narrative. And then the more it feels more like a conversation, right? Because you've done it for like 50 times. After that, it's just like you're having a conversation, and you sound a lot more confident. And I remember my first, pitch publicly, it was like you could hear my voice. Now, if the video is probably someone out there, but like, you could hear my voice just shaking. I was very nervous, and I knew what I was saying, but it was just nerve. That was because I haven't, done as much practicing as I needed to. But then over time, now I can deliver our deck, our presentation in a way that's just is beautiful to hear, right? So definitely practice. Don't skip this. Now, do you do this, right? Just find like all of your friends, tell them to give you like their time, and just practice to them, and just imagine that it's real, that you're practicing to a real investor, and hear their feedback. See if they're bored, like it doesn't make sense to them, and then take note of all the questions they're asking you, and then just do this as much as you can to make sure you get it good. Also use like a recording device, maybe Loom or any sort of video recording software out there. Like just practice in front of the screen as well, from like the first page to the final page. Just keep practicing. Watch that video again, and then go back again. Retune it, fine tune it, and then do it again. It's really just practicing and practicing and practicing. Cool. So that's step one. Step two, fundraising strategy. This is really key, very important to make sure that you get this right. We made a lot of errors, a lot of mistakes. Zazu, I'm not ashamed to say that, but I don't want you to make those mistakes. So the most important thing to understand here is that mindset, right? Like fundraising is a sales process, right? And it's selling. You're selling to people. You're a salesman. You become a salesperson when you're pitching your business, when you're fundraising. You're communicating your big idea, how big this opportunity is, and why people should join you and back you. So there's a process behind that, right? To make sure that it follows a certain pattern. You're moving people down a funnel, and you close your round as quickly as possible, right? So there is a process to that. The other thing I think it's worth mentioning here in terms of mindset, like, listen, you're not going to people to beg for money, right? You're not a charity, right? You're going to them to say, hey, give me your money now, and I can make you much richer in 3, 4, 5 years, maybe 7 years, right? That's the mindset, and that really changes your behavior, your confidence level, and how you speak to the other person, right? And they appreciate that, because you're not begging like, oh, please, we need. No, you're going because you have an amazing proposition. You see a fantastic opportunity, right? And you want to extend that opportunity to other people, right? So that's sort of like the mindset thing. And but in terms of actionable thing, one, like you need to create an investment pipeline. I'm gonna put a link somewhere below this video for you to basically see like a template. There's a wonderful presentation made by Jenny Fieldings from Techstars, and she basically kind of talked through how to create an investment pipeline. The importance of this is that it allows you, or it forces you to kind of do some research around the types of investors you want to be engaging with. Right, this is before you start speaking to people. Right, you have an investment pipeline. It's either on Notion or on Excel or wherever. Right, which has maybe 50 to 100 names of angels and VCs that you want to speak to, and these angels and VCs are in your they invest in your space, in your industry, and they invest in your stage as well, like pre-seed. You're looking for pre-seed investors, right? Not seed investors, right? There's a very big difference between going to seed investors, right? Because they're going to be asking you different questions that you don't have the answers to, right? But at a pre-seed level, they understand really they're backing the team, they're backing the opportunity, like the potential of that market, right? And they're taking a lot more risk on you, right? So the investment pipeline allows you to put down a list of names, angels or VCs that you want to speak to, right? But it also allows you to kind of like track the engagement and conversations you're having with all these people, right? Remember, fundraising is a sales process. So this investment pipeline is actually a pipeline because you can see different stages of the conversation, the different stages that investors are kind of going through, if that makes sense. If you have more questions around like how to create an investment pipeline, do definitely give me a shout. I'm a bit conscious of time, so I don't want to go too much in depth into that, right? But the importance of this is that you can now share this pipeline with your network and say, hey, I've got all these investors, can you make an intro, right? So that's very helpful. Making an intro, like going in through a warm intro is like, it's super important, right? Just having an investment pipeline without an intro, honestly, don't bother, because these investors are not going to reply to you. You're no one. You reach out to them via LinkedIn, they said no to you, right? Like even though they claim to be open, like DM me or wherever, it's all BS, man. Like intro is still the king, right? Create an investment pipeline. Look for people in your network who can make these intros, right? If they can't make those intros, then follow them, sort of engage, build like a type of relationship with those investors, right? And then just find a way to kind of nudge them in, right? But anyway, moving on. Next step is I'd say you want to sort of break your raise into multiple tranches, and here's what I mean by that. If you're raising 400k, right, you want to break that into, remember, your pre-seed, right? And I'm really speaking to specific audience here, right? You don't have a huge network of people who can give you a lot of money, right? So what you want to do, and this is what I didn't get until later on in our investment fundraising process, but you want to sort of break that 400k that you're raising into multiple tranches, so that one, it makes it easier for you to reach out to some investors first, right? In your investment pipeline, you're going to have some angels that can only do between 10k and 50k, right? You might have quite a lot of that. Maybe within your friends and family, you have some people who want to do 5k, right? So you want to make it easier for those people to come in, but at the same time, from their perspective, they're thinking, well, how's this guy going to raise 400k, or how is this girl going to raise 400k, right? But you want to completely eliminate that from their mind, right? By breaking your raise into multiple tranches. And I'm going to really talk about this in the next step. So your first raise is on your deck. You send out a deck saying you're raising 50k, but really you're raising 400. That's very important. Now, the other thing that's been very helpful to us, we're not part of an accelerator yet. We're speaking to a couple. You want to get an accelerator or an incubator into your fundraising strategy. One, it gives you like huge credibility that, oh, bro, uh, YC, Techstars, or these accelerators are in. Secondly, they accelerator gives you like a huge network of investors to come into your round. You know, so I'd say that's very important. You know, get an accelerator, start speaking to accelerators, start applying to accelerators, and see how you can get in. At this point in time, I would recommend that you join one of the schools that accelerators provide. So for YC, they have like the startup school program, which is free. You can get in, and that just again prepare your mindset. It prepares you to be investment ready, basically. So yeah, once you sort of really agree on what the fundraising strategy is going to be, you've created an investment pipeline. You know exactly how much you're going to raise, and you've broken that into multiple tranches. You at this point you don't need to be part of an accelerator, but if you've applied or you're building a relationship with one, that's really cool. Now you want to close the deal. Now this is where the main thing happens, right? So, first is you want to obviously reach out to investors. You want to start reaching out to investors and, start asking them for money, right? So, the first step, you've broken down your investment, your 400k investment or 200k investment into say, hey, 50k first, or excuse me, or maybe 100k first, excuse me. You want to reach out to those investors who typically give between 10k to 50k, or your friends and family who can give in 5k, right? And then you want to go to those people first because one, they're easier to sell to, they're easier to pitch to, and they're much more lenient, right? And they can come in quickly, right? So you want to reach out to those people first and say, hey guys, we're raising 100k or 50k in the next 2 weeks. We would like to have you on board on this really exciting journey. This company is going to do extremely well. As well as that, if you come in now between the next, if you come in on this 100k, we will give you a very low valuation. So, we're raising a full 400k, but for the first 100k that we get, we're giving you a very low valuation of £1 million, right? And then that's good news to investors because they want to come in at a very low valuation and get the best deal. And it makes sense as well because they're taking a lot more risk on you. That's the first check coming into your company, right? So really use that, first tranche to essentially say to investors from a sales perspective that, hey, we are raising 400k. The first 100k or 50k is at a very low valuation. As soon as we close this 100k, the next set of tranche, which is 200k, would be at a much higher valuation. Guess what? They want to come in at the lowest valuation, right? So, and at that level, say you've put 50k, right, or 100k. I should just make up my mind, right? Boom. Going forward, I'm going to stick to 50k. So 50k, you're getting like 10k from one person. Today it's like, oh, we're 20%, right? And then you get another 10k, you're 40%. You get another 10k, you're 60%. You get another 10k, you're 80% close. So you can use these progress as a fear of missing out to get investors to commit to you much quickly. Does that make sense? Once you close that tranche, the next tranche, you want to let you don't want to go to other investors and say, hey, we're now raising. You've gone from 50k to say, hey, we're now raising an additional 200k. We've got 25% commitment. This is the valuation that we're now doing at this round. This is moving very quickly. Now, from investors' perspective, it's like, oh wow, okay, people, this deal is quite interesting. He or she, they've already got some investors on board, which is good for them, right? So they want to get in quickly as well. Unfortunately, the way this game works is investors put in money into what they know other people have put in money to, right? And subsequent rounds is just much cheaper, much easier for you to close rounds. So that's just how that game works. Fear of missing out and then seeing existing people that have put in money. It's something that drives investors to put in their cash. I hope I'm making sense. If I'm not, just give me drop me an email or whatever, right? And I think number two is like offer discounts to early investors. I've already talked about that. Um, what that discount mean is the first 50k that comes in, you're going to give them a low evaluation, and you let those investors know that. To take it one step further, this is not you lying to investors, by the way. This is you saying to investors beforehand, guys, we're raising between like 200k to 400k. That's the go. We absolutely need 200k, but we'll take up to 400. Right, the first 200k that comes in, or the first 50k that comes in, or the first 100k that comes in, we're gonna get a discount of a much lower valuation. Anything that comes in after that, it will be at a higher valuation. So you let those investors know, and guess what? Once you let them know ahead of time, they want to come in much sooner because they want that low valuation. So I think that's very important. Um, and then finally, use a simple fundraising instrument to close your round. I'd say at the pre-seed stage, forget equity. That's my personal opinion. It's just long. It's just long, right? Like all these investors that want SEIS and EIS, gosh, that's long, right? You can deal with that at seed round. Pre-seed, you just want to get those money coming in for you using a very simple, straightforward instrument, which could be safe, or in the UK, it's seed fast, right? Through seed legals. So that's in a nutshell. That's kind of like the process, you know. Well, to close the deal, really is you once you get an investor to say, hey, well, I'm in. Okay, give me. I'm gonna put 50k. I'm gonna put 10k. I'm gonna put 20k. You basically send them like a simple document to say, hey, well, for your 50k, this is the post money valuation. Sign the paperwork here. It's like use Sid Legals, right? It's very simple and straightforward. I'm not sure what it is for other entrepreneurs or startups in other parts of the world, but in the UK, I'd suggest Sid Legals just because it's pretty straightforward, you know, to close. The other thing is, guys, fundraising costs money. Like anyone who tells you fundraising doesn't cost money, they haven't raised before. Fundraising costs money. Don't go in the sales process with the thinking that, oh, you're going to do this all for free. It costs a lot of, well, not a lot of money, but it costs, some percentage, right? Right, depending on which channel or which instrument you're using, it can cost you about 5% of the total round, right, to raise. So I think that's something a lot of entrepreneurs are generally not aware of. Like, it costs money, all the tools that you're using cost you money. You're gonna need a lawyer, or maybe you're using seed legals. It costs money as well. Man, everything costs money. Aside from money, the other thing that it costs is time. Like it's a full-time job. Honestly, it's a full-time gig. We didn't start to make progress until I basically quit my job and I started working on this, the fundraising process full-time, right? So I think you'd be kidding yourself. And I'm speaking specifically to black founders here, right? I think you'd be kidding yourself if you don't have a network, you don't have the experience of raising in the past that you want to raise without putting a huge amount of time into this. It takes a huge amount of time to perfect your pitch, to constantly improve your narrative, to constantly speak to investors, to chase them up, to to just build, to kind of get that momentum going. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. But if you have a process in place, it just makes it much easier. And hopefully, if you follow some of these techniques here, it should hopefully make your life easier for you. So this is my tips on how to raise money as a black founder anywhere in the world, as a first-time black founder. Hopefully it's helpful. Do give me a shout. Let me know how things are going. I like to connect with really cool founders doing amazing stuff wherever you are in the world. Let's definitely connect. And I am out.